Welcome back to the Tiga Tactics podcast, show about self-defense for civilians by civilians. We discuss all things personal protection, including martial arts, combat sports, and street combatives. Our resident martial arts nerds, MANs, include co-founder of Tiga Tactics and holder of black belts in 9 different styles, Dr. Conrad Bui.
Hello, everybody.
And we are missing the other co-founder, Patrick Vuong, so it is just the two of us. I am the other co-host, active duty Army Special Forces soldier and champion obstacle course racing athlete, Evan Ultra-OCR man Perperis. And today we're going to be doing a deep dive into one of Conrad's many martial arts that he has deep expertise in. We're going to be talking about Silat. So let's start off with just the simple, for people who may not know or may not be familiar with the art, like what is Silat? Am I even pronouncing it right?
Yes, Silat, and it's just an easy way to remember. When someone uses it on you, it just hurts a lot.
That's good. That's good.
I'm not gonna be a comedian, but yeah, you're definitely right. Silat is art from Southeast Asia, and Silat is an umbrella term used in many Southeast Asian countries. In fact, there's Silat of course, in Indonesia, where many people equate Silat. There's also Silat in the Philippines. There's Silat in Malaysia. There's Silat in Thailand, as well as other Southeast Asian countries. So when we use the word Silat, that's just a big umbrella term for many martial arts in Southeast Asia. When we use the word Pancak Silat, that specifically refers to the art from Indonesia.
And that's the one you studied, correct?
Yes, and that's the one I study. Although, they're all pretty much the same. They all use tight. I would consider it a close range system. Like for example, Taekwondo might be a far range system using kicks. Boxing and trapping, like Wing Chun, are a little closer, and then even closer would be Silat before you go into the full-on grappling.
Gotcha. And yeah, I know, obviously we mentioned your extensive background, multiple black belts, and if anyone listened to one of the early episodes where we actually deep dive into your entire background, where does this fall into your timeline of studying arts? Like when did it start? How many other arts had you done prior to that,
All
etc.?
right. Well, I came upon Silat after starting in Aikido with my father, and then Taekwondo as a kid, and then competing in Taekwondo, and then I competed in Taekwondo up until college. And in college, I met an instructor in Jeet Kune Do. His name is Jeff Jones, and at that time, it was the early 1990s. In fact, it was 1990 when I met Jeff. And Jeff has a Jeet Kune Do school over on the East Coast to this day. But at that time, it was called JKD/Kali by some of its practitioners. So at that time, the Guru Dan Inosanto, I guess, fanboys, if you will, are instructors underneath him. That's what they called it. And in the early 90s, maybe late 80s, I'm sure late 80s, Guru Dan was looking into Silat. And at that time, he had an instructor named Paul de Tours. And Master Paul de Tours taught the system of Sarak, which is from Indonesia, from Java. And Guru Dan Inosanto was learning that art from Guru Paul, but man, Guru Dan Inosanto was just really talking up that system, and he started teaching that system at his seminars, and at that time it was almost a secretive teaching. So when my Jeet Kune Do teacher, Guru Jeff Jones, he was teaching me the Jeet Kune Do, the Kali, and then he started talking about the Silat, and then he would show me a handset. We call that a juru in Pancak Silat. A juru just means upper body fundamentals in the system of Sarak. And he said, "Oh, hey, we've got to keep this secret because we can't let this out." Almost, back in the day, it was almost like having the nuclear launch codes or something like that. We can't show this to anyone. And I always wanted to learn it. And after college, I went. That was in Denver, and then after college, I went to chiropractic school in San Jose, and surprisingly, just fate, serendipity, whatever you call it, it was crazy. There was a Silat instructor, a Pancak Silat instructor in the school teaching as a clinician. And believe it or not, he taught the same art that Guru Dan was learning, Sarak. And oh my goodness, I couldn't believe it. It was like hitting the jackpot. And yeah, so I went to him and bugged him, of course, and got him to teach me Silat. And his lineage at that time came slightly different, but it's very similar to what Guru Dan was learning. And so I just thought it was amazing. And also during that time too, Black Belt Magazine, Inside Kung Fu, those magazines, they were releasing articles on Silat, on Paul de Tours, as well as Rudy Terlinden in those times. Those were the two big names associated with Silat Sarak, as well as the brothers, the de Tours brothers, Willem de Tours, Victor de Tours, Maurice de Tours. They were all very well known in the magazines as well too.
Gotcha.
But I have an article actually. So let me tell you how I was so hooked, right? Here's an article from Inside Kung Fu. And this is a quote from Guru Dan Inosanto talking about Sarak, about Silat. And the title of this article is Meet Paul de Tours, the deadliest man Dan Inosanto has ever seen. So, being part of that Inosanto lineage, that group there, of course, whatever he says, we're all, oh yeah, okay, of course. And so, what a title, the deadliest man Dan Inosanto has ever seen. And here's a quote from that article here. I'll just read it very quickly. And this is a quoting Guru Dan. The hand traps equals advanced Wing Chun. The foot traps are the best I've ever seen, and the footwork and angulation is in a class by itself. Sarak is based on nerve hitting, balance and off balancing, and lines of direction. It's based on physics and physiology and a knowledge of the anatomical weaknesses of the body. Of course, all arts are partially based on these principles, but this one is far more sophisticated. The whole idea of the system is to produce the maximum result with the minimum effort, unquote. And so, I read that article, I reread that article maybe like 20, 30 times. I still read it from time to time. And yeah, I was totally hooked on wanting to learn this entire system of Sarak.
Gotcha. So let's paint the picture a little bit more for people. Just kind of big brush strokes, big overview. Is there any specific uniform that the people tend to wear in Silat schools?
Um, I think in Indonesia, they'll wear like traditional martial arts uniform. It might look like a karate gi or a kung fu style dress as well too. Instead of a belt, they might have a sash. And every school might have a different color as well
Hmm.
too. And so when we say silat or even pancak silat, the art from Indonesia, it's an umbrella term for potentially dozens, if not maybe hundreds of styles. Just like when we say kung fu, there's dozens of
Right.
styles underneath that umbrella term. And so Indonesia is composed of many islands, many small islands with many small villages and dialects. And I think almost every village probably had a version of martial arts that they would call Pancak Silat in Indonesia. And so my teacher, Dr. Andre, as well as later on Uncle Bill, Willem de Tours, which is Paul de Tours' brother, we just trained in street clothes. And sometimes when we give seminars, Dr. Andre would just have us wearing like black martial arts pants and a Silat t-shirt. But Uncle Bill or Master Willem de Tours, he would just teach in his work pants and sneakers maybe and an old flannel shirt. And so with him, it was very much like family. You would come into his house, he would teach you, and you would just come in whatever you wanted to train in.
And are there ranks like we would associate with some, Taekwondo schools with colored belts or anything like that? Or is it just you learn the knowledge and at some point you become an instructor and that's like the instructor rank? Or is it every school is different just because it's such a big umbrella term?
Yeah, it is. I think from my era of learning Silat, that art was still very like inside the family. So you were either a student or you were a teacher. There was no rank, there was no belts. When I was learning it, it was like you would just learn and go through the system. And one day when my teacher felt like I was ready, he would just say, "Okay, you're a guru now. Go teach the system." And I
Nice.
think that was very similar to kung fu as well too. Kung fu back in the day, the traditional, like the old school kung fu, your teacher would just say, "Okay, well, you're ready to go teach. Now go teach." There wouldn't be any big ceremony or belt promotion or anything like that. You would go out and you would teach, and your community would in fact call you Shifu or instructor or master. Your community would call you that. You would never call yourself that. You really didn't have a certificate to even put up. You'd go out there, you'd just start teaching, and it would be your community who gave you your rank. Actually, they would call you by your title.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, I think times have changed with modern marketing and trying to attract students with different colored banks belts and ranks and ways to track progress, etc. Let's
Yeah,
jump.
and
Let
I don't
Go
think
for it.
that's a bad thing. I
Yeah.
think if you're going to commercialize CLOT, you probably should have belt ranks. I think in the old days, if you wanted to learn CLOT, you were just committed. You knew this would be a lifelong journey that you wanted to take. And so people who sought out CLOT back in those days, they knew it was a journey they wanted to finish up. That being said, belt rankings are not bad if you have a commercial school. It's important that students have goals to set, small goals instead of just this one big mountain to climb. There's little goals that they can achieve within 3 months or 6 months or something like that that they can see that they're making progress. And also, it's not a bad thing because if there's an instructor that comes in and he's not aware of which student's level is where, then he could just generally look at their rank and go, okay, this is probably an advanced student here. This student here is probably a beginner. We can split them into these groups, and they have a slightly better idea of how to work with a, a stranger, for example.
Yeah, and when you talk goal setting, even when I coach fitness or provide training plans for people, I always talk about having like a 5-year goal, so like something big and long term that you're consistently working towards, like a 1-year goal, so something that'll kind of keep you a little more motivated, but it's a little bit closer, and then like goal that's a couple months out. So the goal that's a couple months out is going to get you out of bed in the morning, right? Because that's something, the 5-year goal would be like, oh yeah, I'll get to it eventually, but you need those short-term goals to give you a little bit of motivation to give you that discipline to get up every day to keep training. So
I
yeah.
I agree. And just real quick to piggyback off that, especially for kids, kids need
Oh,
those goals
100%,
to stay
100%.
motivated as well too.
Yeah. Let's talk pros and then we'll go into cons afterwards. So pros of Silat compared to some other styles, like mix in some, compare it to some other styles and why you think it's unique and beneficial.
All right. Uh, you know, I I usually tell my students, and I don't like to say this publicly, but I'll just say it publicly anyways because full transparency, right? Uh, if I could just have one art, I mean, I was like, I don't know, gun to my head and say you can only train one art. what art would that be? It would probably come down to Silat Sarak.
Really?
And the reason being is I think it borders the line perfectly between a martial art, which has tradition, it has history, it even has some mysticism, and even a little bit of kookiness that you'll see in McDojo life. It goes that far. And yet it also has a good amount of combatives. I mean, come on, elbow, kneeing, sweeping someone to the ground. That's some basic street fighting there. And it also has a good amount of just a traditional art that's not too crazy on the forms. For
Mm.
example, like Kung Fu. Kung Fu, like a Kung Fu system I practice, Baguazhang. The first set has over 160 moves.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
just a lot. And there's a lot of sets in that system. And so I think that's just a little too cumbersome for having too many forms. Nothing wrong with that. Forms are great for health, fitness, for training, for cataloging your techniques, for passing on a tradition to somebody else. But sometimes it can get in the way of really learning like what combat application might be. So Silat does have forms, but they're very short. And so the first two sets are the two longest sets. There's 18 hand forms called jurus. The hand forms are just upper body fundamental movements. And so the hand sets, what we call jurus, they teach you the ABCs of what your upper body could do. And so the first two are the longest, and they're very short actually compared to like a karate or taekwondo kata. And then from then on, from the Juru 3 to 18, it's just one, two, or three more motions off those sets. So they're very short sets. And then what's cool about this system is they divide the upper body, what we call jurus in this system, anyways, and then we have lankas, which are the foot, which are the footwork training, the training for the footwork. And the lankas are based on geometric patterns. So there's a straight line lanka. There's one on the triangle we call lanka tiga, and that's where Tiga Tactics comes from. Tiga meaning three in Indonesian, so 3 points. You take three rocks, you throw it on the ground, you connect those points, and it'll probably form a triangle of some sort. And so there's a pattern that you use footwork with a triangle, and almost every art uses a triangular step, whether it's Kali, Taekwondo, Muay Thai, or Karate. You'll see triangle footwork. You'll see forward footwork, sideways footwork. So there's those sets. One will be based on the triangle, another on the square, another on a bigger platform, which composes of a bunch of squares and triangles as well too. And what I found unique in Silat are the drills that they do as well too. There's these Lanka drills, which teaches you how to identify your opponent's weaknesses in their structure, in their footwork, as well as their structure, effortlessly and instinctively. So the Lanka drills, I think, are a really cool portion of the system as well too. Of course, later on, you add the jurus, and then you can combine the jurus. So maybe you might combine a movement from Juru 2 with a movement from Juru 18, and a small movement ending of Juru 1, for example. And that creates like a lot of techniques. I want to say endless, but I'm sure it's not endless. But once you start combining the jurus, and then you combine it with your lankas, and just a whole amount of techniques can come out of there. So Silat Sarak is based on concepts and principles, and from concepts and principles, you create techniques. And so some Silat instructors have created techniques they might call Sambut one or combination one or technique 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You could do that as well and solidify it almost like Kempo. But if you understand the principle behind the movements, you can, in fact, create your own technique. Uh, what
Oh,
is also cool is that later on, these same motions, they apply to knives, karambits, And the signature weapon of Pancak Silat, especially from Java, is that keris, the wavy blade.
Mm.
And that's in fact more of a spiritual weapon than a physical weapon, but it's a really cool blade uh, historically as well too. Uh, so I want to go back to what the word Pancak Silat means. In fact, Pancak means like movement. So the study of movement. Some people might call it a dance, and then Silat means combat. So it's basically the study of movement as it relates to combat. So any movement, whether you're doing hula or doing the electric slide or you're doing kata, that's movement. And if you have the concepts, the keys behind those movements, you can relate it to combat.
Nice. Bouncing off a couple things you said. One, Chris blades, yeah, they're super cool. I've got a reverse, it's a edge in Chris blade by Greg Moffitt knives. Super nice. It's got like the grippiest handle I've ever had. It's like
Wow.
it's just like it feels like the top of a skateboard, like that really rough, which I think is really nice. Um, and then you were talking about the forms. A lot of I feel like criticism you get in modern day about forms and stuff like that, but you have to remember before people had VHS and before people had DVD and YouTube, like you had to figure out a way to like remember things. And
Right.
like just from a practicality standpoint, that's like a great way to remember it. Essentially, you make a sentence out of all these moves, and then I really like how Silat takes that and you can kind of mix and match and combine these different things to come up with techniques. So I think that's really clever. I think the principles and concepts base is just a really good way to learn the material and then actually apply it. I feel like when you do principles and concepts, the application tends to be a little bit better once people have seen a couple examples in real life and pressure tested a little bit and figured it out. Um, let's talk a little bit about some of the cons.
There's absolutely no cons to this art. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Okay. That's what the people in the art will tell you, though.
That's what people at every art tell you, though.
Right. Okay. Of course, what art cannot be improved upon? I think all arts can be improved upon. As long as we have an open, respectful dialogue with other martial arts as an open mind, we can improve upon things. I think one thing that it's not just Silat, but almost every traditional art, it's solidified in time. In other words, this is the way it was created. This is how it's handed to you, and you hand it to the other person as is. Don't be changing anything. Don't add anything. Don't take anything out. And like Bruce Lee says, it becomes the gospel,
Mm.
and we just can't change anything. So I think Silat, as some teachers teach it's very traditional. It's been solidified. It's a concrete system. Unfortunately, things that are solid and concrete, they tend to break. So it's good to be flexible about learning from other systems. So one thing that Silat does, I would say there's not a whole lot of pressure testing. In other words, I'd say 90% of my training was like someone would throw a punch and I would do a technique on that person and they'd allow me to do the technique on them. And I
Mm.
would feel good. Like, oh, hey, it worked. Sometimes it didn't work. And then I'd have to figure out, oh, what am I doing wrong? Da, 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 da. And then, oh, now it works. Okay. And that's luckily because my partner just left their fist out there and just allowed me to do what I needed to do.
Yeah.
And so there's a sense of, I want to say, an illusion of thinking that everything's effective.
Yeah, yeah.
And again, it's not just in Silat. I see it in Kung Fu and Kempo,
Oh,
in
yeah.
many traditional arts where there's just not that pressure testing. So that's one of the things that frustrated me. I knew that there should be pressure testing, but then the traditional artists will say, "Oh, well, if you pressure test this, somebody's gonna die." And then I thought, oh gosh, there must be a way. There must be a way. So that's how that frustration led me to Tiga Tactics. Actually, was that in these traditional arts like Silat and Kung Fu. There wasn't a lot of pressure testing, and then their whole thing was, oh, well, you're gonna die if you pressure test this thing. Somebody's gonna get something broken or whatever. And I thought there must be a safe way. But and that's how Tiga Tactics came about, was through that frustration. So that's one of the, I would say, the limitations of this system, was that there wasn't that safe pressure testing. Of course, also, I would say another limitation, and again, this goes back to many traditional system, it's using modern technology. Modern technology is being used today in MMA gyms, in boxing gyms, as well as physical fitness facilities. Why not look to them and see what you can learn from them as well too?
Good input there. Good input. Random personal questions. I'm just kind of curious. Do you ever use any of the Silat sweeps or takedowns, like in rolling for BJJ, like when you're doing standing grappling?
Yes, I do. Yes, I
Okay.
do. The thing is, judo has the same thing,
Okay.
So in judo, it might be called osotogari, which is like you just come in and you sweep the back of their leg out from underneath them. Silat would call that a basset.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so some of the things, it's interesting, and I've seen this time and time again. Some of the things I thought was only in Silat, I saw in wrestling, I saw in Muay Thai, I saw in judo, and so it happens with traditional martial artists, or not just traditional martial artists, but martial artists who just stay inside their own bubble, and they're like, oh well, this is a kung fu technique, and they stole it from us, or
Right.
this is a silat technique, and someone stole it from us somehow. When it's not just one culture that discovered, well, if I take one rock and another rock, I've got two rocks. And
Right.
one plus one equals two. And many cultures can come to the same conclusion if it's a certain efficient truth.
Yeah, there's a Bruce Lee quote about, as long as people have two arms and two legs,
Right.
there's only so many combinations and of different things you can do. And, you know, t kicking someone's base out from under them and toppling them down to the ground, is a pretty good technique, regardless of how you do it, whether you clip the foot or clip the leg or, break down the
Hmm.
hip, whatever it may be. So why don't you share with us the webinar that's going on?
Okay, yes, definitely. November 16th, my teacher, Willem de Tours. Oh, yeah. So, how did I meet Uncle Bill? When I graduate from chiropractic college, my teacher, Guru Andre, or Dr. Andre Kanushkraken, he's Dutch Indonesian, as well as my teacher, Uncle Bill, Dutch Indonesian. They're both Dutch Indonesians. And so when I graduated, my professor in my chiropractic school, as well as my guru in Silat, he said he knew I was moving back to Colorado. So I was learning Silat in San Jose, and I was moving back to Colorado to practice after I graduated from chiropractic school. He said, "You're in luck. One of the Torres brothers lives in Denver, in the Denver area." And I thought, no way. Oh man, I was, and he made the introduction. I met Uncle Bill when I moved back to Denver to start my chiropractic practice. And yeah, so on November 16th, Uncle Bill will be holding a Zoom seminar. He doesn't hold too many live events anymore. One is because he is almost 89. He's 88 right now. So, but he's turning 89 soon, and so he just doesn't feel like traveling like he used to. And it's a rare opportunity to see him teach live. And so it's so cool. Even if you just tune in just to see this 88, almost 89-year-old gentleman move around, and even if you don't even like Silat, but just to move around and to be inspired, that's worth the price of admission right there.
Is it going to be like the last time where there was like all different instructors that would come in and kind of plug and play different and show different techniques throughout the seminar?
Yes, I think so. But this time, Uncle Bill said he'll be teaching a lot more than he usually does. So
Okay.
hopefully he'll be feeling good, at 88, 89. You just don't know how your day will be, but he said if he's up to it, if he feels good, he's going to be teaching the majority of the seminar.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that'll be a treat. The last one I was at like my daughter's dance competition, so I had to watch slash listen, and I couldn't be like in the back of the auditorium doing the movements. So I missed out on a lot of the last one. So I had to catch it on the replay, but this I should be free for this one, so I'm excited to watch and follow
Cool.
along in person this time.
Yeah. Well, yeah, please join us. And if you can't make it live, you'll get a recording of the event as well too to watch later.
Yeah, and we'll drop a link for that sign up down below in the show notes, so please check that out. Only got a couple minutes left. What other things do you need to share about Silat for our audience?
Silat is more common nowadays. I'm sure if you're interested in Silat, you can find a school or at least a meetup group. A lot of groups train in the park, in the garage, in someone's garage or backyard. But there's actual commercial schools right now if you want to join, as well as Silat has its own competition with rules and things like that as well too. So the Silat I learned was more of a traditional Silat system, more of the old school groin strike, eye gouging, take down, rip the throat kind of style. But the Indonesian people, the country, the government, they put together a rule set and everything like that. So if someone wants to approach Silat from a sport perspective as well too, there's a movement of that in the USA as well too.
And they do like essentially juru competitions as well, don't they? Like forms.
Yes. So there's both forms as well as free sparring as well too.
Oh, cool, cool. My exposure to Silat has basically been through Jeet Kune Do, so we would learn sweeps and some of the movements as part of the Jeet Kune Do curriculum. So I got a little bit of exposure here and there. So
Cool. What did you think of it?
it was good. Some of the sweeps I felt were super complicated, but then other ones, like I said, like I asked you, the reason I asked you is because I've used them in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But like where I basically sweep I come in close and kind of sweep the guy's leg out and then pull him down to the ground. So, um, yeah, it was cool. I liked it. I wouldn't say I love it. So, and I know you keep telling me that I need to do more of it and then I'll fall in love with it, but I haven't quite gotten there yet. Got a lot of stuff on my plate.
I
So.
know, I know. When you have some time, come on by. I'll share with you everything. Luckily, Silat is not too broad. It's just deep. The depth is one of the deepest arts I've ever encountered, but it's not broad. So there's not a lot of things to learn.
Have you taken a pilgrimage to Indonesia like you have Thailand to train there?
No, I have not, but that is definitely on my bucket list. I have some friends from Indonesia as well as in Indonesia that I will make that happen one day.
Oh, interesting, interesting. Cool. And I know you also just did a seminar in Maryland specifically for I believe it was Blade Karambit and Sealot.
Yeah, so blades, Silat as it relates to blades, Silat is a very bladed art. And you would have loved it. 2 days of knife work. Come
Oh,
on, Evan.
I had family visit I had family visiting already. Oh. So the big question is that something you guys plan on doing again at in Baltimore at
Yeah,
the
so there's a Silat seminar every year that we do, but that was the first time it was focused primarily on blades. But usually the blades come out one way or another.
it sounds like you're scaring people off now.
Well, it's
Stick
for
around long
training,
enough, the blades are coming out.
and it's and it's more for academic reasons, because seriously, you put a blade in most people's hands, they're dangerous people. So when you just learn a little bit more, it's almost academic.
Good stuff. All right, we're gonna get going in a minute. Any final shout outs you need to give or anything we missed? We got about 3 minutes left.
Nothing that I can think about. I'm sure Patrick would smack me on the side of the head and say, "We got this or that or this." We do have a new course coming out. I'll go ahead and just let the cat out of the bag. But we do have a new EDC pen course. So if you're interested in using a pen as an improvised self-defense tool, you can check out our course. We should be releasing it pretty soon.
Sounds good. And then I'll drop any links that I have for any upcoming events in the show notes down below. You'll see links for Patrick, Conrad's, and my social media links if you want to just see what we're up to. I know Conrad's always putting out good tips and stuff like that. And then I'll also put a link for my book, Run If You Can, Destroy If You Must, Tiga Tactics, Runners, Walkers, and Hikers Guide to Self-Protection. And then my Patreon page will also be down below if you want some more 5-10 minute videos that are published daily on various topics from mindset to war stories to bladed stuff, etc. So
Yeah, I do want to give a shout out for your Patreon platform there. I think it's really cool. If you're not on it yet, at least follow him on social media. Sign up for the membership. There's everything on there. Yeah, like what you said, war stories and what you learned from that to boxing and footwork. It's turning out to be a really tremendous page.
thank you, thank you. Yeah, it's been I've been aggressively producing content for the last month because I didn't want people to like sign up and there's like nothing on there and things are slow. So like I basically filled up content for about a month and a half before I even told people it existed, and then I've just been stacking content on content. So essentially, there should be something every day from now through the end of the year, and then I'll we'll see how much more I can produce at a consistent rate. But you'll still get a couple things a week. But now to end the year, it should be daily. So all right, well, Dr. Conrad, thanks for coming on your own podcast and telling
Yeah,
us a little more
thank
about
you.
Silat. And we'll see everyone in the next episode.
All right, take care, everyone.